Hello, everyone. Tyler King here with a new episode of New Review. Today, I am going to be doing a review of the new Gary Numan singles box set 45 by 15. If you haven't heard of this, what this is a reissue of the first 15 7-inch singles that were released by Gary Numan as well as Tubeway Army. So you have, I believe it's two singles from the strictly Tubeway Army days. You have two from Replicas, two from Pleasure Principle, like one from Telecon, unless you also count We Are Glass and I Die You Die. One from Dance, three from I Assassin, and two from Warriors. I think that's all of it. So this was recently issued by Beggars Banquet. And first of all, I want to talk about the design of it. So this is made to replicate sort of like an old school 7-inch record box. So you have the clasp here on the front, you put that open, and it opens up, and so you have the singles in here as well as a book that details the artwork of the singles, as well as things like recording dates, what musicians play on each song, etc. I should also clarify, I did not purchase this. So what happened was I entered into a competition that was on Instagram to potentially win this. It was, you had to like take a screenshot and send it into Beggars Banquet on their Instagram page or tag them in it. And I happened to be the US winner. So I received this completely free of charge. This isn't any sort of like sponsorship or endorsement deal or anything like that. I mean, as all of you know, I am a Gary Numan fan. That was how I started out. This channel really was reviewing all of his albums. And so this wasn't something that I would have bought myself. When it was first announced, I did debate it for maybe 2 or 3 weeks. I want to say that the price tag on this is around $200 or so. So that is something to keep in mind as you hear me discussing the contents of this box set. So first of all, let us talk about the singles themselves, the records. Each one is housed in this paper sleeve, which has embossed on it, hopefully you can see that, 45 on one side, and then by 15 on the other. So the two strictly Tubeway Army singles are on this translucent red vinyl, as you can see right there, as it reflects the ring light back at you. And then after that, the ones from Replicas through Telecon are on this translucent blue vinyl. And then finally, so I'm trying to put this back in the right spot. Finally, the ones from Dance, I Assassin, and Warriors are on this translucent green vinyl. So I know that in the past, colored vinyl has kind of been an issue as far as sound quality goes. However, going through and listening to all of the songs on here, I believe there's 31, because the first or second Tubeway Army single has two B-sides. So that has 3 songs, and then I believe everything else has just 2. So listening through it, it sounds great. As far as the sound quality goes, I heard absolutely no issues at all. I have original pressings of most of the albums that these songs are taken from. Really, the only one I don't have is Warriors. And I don't have these two Tubeway Army singles because they were never issued on the Tubeway Army album that came out. So as far as like comparing sound quality, things like that, it sounds absolutely great. Um, I want to say that they're probably sourced from the same remasters that they've been using on their recent Gary Numan reissue series. So as far as that goes, absolutely no complaints. Something else that I thought was kind of cool is that on the inner image of the singles, you'll have a picture from either its corresponding album or corresponding era. So, for instance, you have that picture of him there on the first single. You have this picture of him there on the second single. The two Pleasure Principle singles have the picture of him from the front of that album, etc. So I do like, for the most part, the imagery of this. Now, when I say for the most part, the reason why I hesitate is that on some of the images, and hopefully this shows up. So, maybe that to adjust. I don't know if you're going to be able to make it out very well. Um, the the colors seem off on some of these, like almost like it was being printed on a printer that was running out of a certain color of ink, so it tried to make up for that by, like trying to shade a different color ink as close as it could to that color. If you've ever printed a picture on off of a printer that's low on ink, hopefully you know what I'm talking about. And that carries on into the book. Now, the book itself, I think, is pretty nice. It is, gosh, 63 pages. Um, so what you have is a first you have an index of what singles are in here, what songs are in here. So it starts out with "That's Too Bad," which is the first single on here. Notes recorded at Spaceward Studio, Cambridge on 16 October 1977. You have the album artwork for each or the single artwork for each corresponding single. However, as it gets on, kind of like what I was mentioning before, some of the pictures in here, and it's mostly just like the pictures of his face, the small ones that they use, it kind of looks off. Again, I don't know how well this is going to come through on the video. That looks a bit off. But the recreation of the actual single imagery, again, for the most part, is good until, like, this one, the Warrior single. That is not any sort of flare on the page or anything. Like, it looks maxed out as far as that, like, contrast goes. Like, that sky is unnaturally red. You have these weird green hues on his face for his face tone. Again, it's not like that for every single image. I'm trying to see if there are any other instances. Yeah, for the most part, everything else looks pretty good. I mean, Cars looks a little bit blown out. There's a lot of greens in that. So don't know what was going on with that. But otherwise, I do wish that the notes kept up with the like specific recording dates as it goes on, but unfortunately it doesn't. Like, for instance, for I Die, You Die, it just says recorded at Rock City Shepperton Studios in Surrey. And then it says in the corner what musicians played what instruments on both the A side and the B side. And it does that for each one. And it's weird that it's really only the early Gary Numan's, or the early Tubeway Army songs, that it has the exact recording dates for. But overall, I think that the book is absolutely fine. Now, as far as complaints go, the book kind of plays into it in that I really don't like the fact that the singles come in these flimsy paper sleeves. Personally, I would have preferred if they came in recreations of the original sleeves. I know that that probably would have driven up the cost of making this box set, and I totally get that. However, it does, putting these singles and these paper sleeves does give it a bit of cheapness. Um, which, if you're charging like $200 plus for a box set, that's not a word that I think you should want associated with this set. Um, Now, at the end of the day, with a price tag of around $200, you really are only getting 31 songs. So while it is good that some of these songs are being reissued, particularly some of these B-sides, um, while that is great, I do wish that it was done in a more sort of like cost-effective way. Like, I know that as if you've seen my videos on them, Depeche Mode has been doing a series of 12-inch single box sets. I have the two most recent ones. And I think that, I mean, given that some of these singles were released on 12-inch vinyl back in the day, sometimes with an extra B-side or two, I think that they could have easily gone that route. Of course, if they wanted to keep this box appearance, that obviously would have driven up price. And like the box itself, I think is really great. It has a very like plush, almost like crushed velvet feel to the inside of it. There's a little tag inside that says what number out of, I think it's 2000 you have. So mine is number 915 out of 2000. Um, yeah, really for me, the only cons I can think of with this set are the paper sleeves paired with the price of it. Granted, I do know that Gary Numan fans are very, you're all a very passionate bunch. You don't seem to mind laying down money for his music and his merchandise, which I think is, for the most part, great. I do think, at the end of the day, this is really a collector's item for hardcore Gary Numan fans who maybe don't want to continue to play original pressings of some of these singles. So, at the end of the day, do I recommend this? Mostly yes. I do think, though, that you should be aware of the somewhat limited amount of musical content you are getting for the price. So if that is something that you don't have an issue with, or, like if for whatever reason, maybe you don't want to order some of these original pressings secondhand and you just want to have them all in one nice collected package, yeah, I would recommend getting this. Um, you know, I've seen some people complaining way more than I am about certain like image quality and stuff like that, particularly in the book. I don't know, like maybe some of the copies of the book got bungled with maybe like lower quality imagery. I'm not sure. Maybe I lucked out. Um, but besides a couple of like contrast and color options here and there, I'm not crying myself to sleep over some of the imagery in this book. I think that if anything, for me, re-listening to some of these songs, it really did make me appreciate some of them even more, like the original versions of like Noise Noise, um, the song Random, the B-side of Cars. And I know that when I did my initial reviews of Gary Numan's discography, I didn't really talk about the B-sides, and the reason for that is I wanted to focus on each album as it was originally presented. And so on some, well, not even on some, on pretty much all of the CD reissues of things like, Replicas, Dance, Pleasure Principle, Warriors, you would have the B-sides from that given era put on as bonus tracks. And, I'm not the biggest fan of bonus tracks on CDs or, like really just albums as a whole. I think generally B-sides are meant to be that. And so re-listening back, and I'm pulling this out so I can go through and look at some of these. Oh, my apologies, I messed up. It's Asylum. That's the B-side to Cars, not Random. Let me take a look at some of this. Yeah, I think Do You Need the Service? Great. Asylum, great. The live version of Bombers, that's the B-side to Complex, which is great. The B-side of We Are Glass, which I'm not even going to try to pronounce, has always been a favorite. The piano version of Down in the Park. Okay, the 7-inch for this wreckage with Photograph on the B-side might be just like, as far as A-sides and B-sides go, like the best thing Gary Numan ever put out. Yeah, the original version of Noise Noise. Poetry and Power, the B-side of Sister Surprise. And Sister Surprise is not a song that I really am a fan of. Like Warriors as a whole, like that album just never really had really like anything on it that even looking back I can remember being a fan of besides the title track really. And Poetry and Power was just like, flipping over this 7-inch and listening to that song was just kind of like, oh my god, like why was this one left off of the album? Yeah, I think overall it's a very solid collection of songs, and like if you're like me and you don't necessarily listen to the B-sides very often, it is nice that this is a way of sort of maybe like reintroducing them to you. Yeah, I would recommend this again, just with the caveat that it is a couple $100s. You should do your research and you should know what you're getting before you buy it. I do know that if you order it directly through Gary Numan's web store, it comes signed by him, which is nice. This is an unsigned version of it, which is absolutely fine. I have his signature on a couple of things. I'm good. Yeah, and I also, there's a website called The Hard Times, and it's sort of like, it's like The Onion. It's like fake and parody sort of headlines, but The Hard Times is more about music, particularly punk music. And there was an article that they posted a couple of years ago that I just thought was hilarious, which was fan of 7-inch singles, also fan of standing up every 3 minutes to turn record around, because you do get your steps in with this. None of these songs are particularly long, so every few minutes you're gonna get up, you're gonna get your steps in. So maybe that's a good thing. Yeah, and I'm just trying to think of anything else to say about this set. It's a really good summation of the first handful of years of Gary's career. I might have preferred it if they'd gone the 12-inch single route, but I do understand that would have driven up the cost of manufacturing, because doing that, I feel like you would have to issue each single in a standard 12-inch sleeve, not just a paper sleeve. So I definitely understand from a like business perspective and a budget perspective, you don't want to lose money on a product like this. So, you know, $200 for this, for me, I wouldn't necessarily have bought it, but I also recently am not the most hardcore Gary Numan fan that I was before. But if you have the money for it and you like these songs, or you haven't heard them in a while and you want to, quote unquote, complete your collection of his singles, and you might not have some of these, I would say go ahead and get this. Um, yeah, it's probably going to be the only 7-inch box set that I ever have in my collection, and at the end of the day, I got it for free. Basically, I can't complain about it. I just want any potential viewer to be aware of certain pros and cons before they potentially pull the trigger and order this. So that is it. That is the Gary Numan 45 by 15 box set. What do you think? Do you have this box set and love it? Do you have this box set and do you hate it? Did you see the announcement and think it's ridiculous? I would love to read your comments in the comment box below. If you're a fan of content like this, I do have a Patreon. I'll put a link to that in the description of this video. You'll be able to do things like get early access to videos like this, as well as exclusive review videos, and also vote for albums that I should review next. So until next time, I'm Tyler King with New Review. Keep listening to great music.